All right, today we are diving deep into one of the most powerful texts ever written, the Bhagavad Gita. Now, before you think this is going to be some kind of religious lecture, let me stop you right there. That's not what this is about. We're going to unpack the very first chapter and look at it for what it is, a raw, incredibly human story about a moment of crisis. And you know what? It's a story that might just feel a little too familiar, even today. So, what's the big deal with the Gita? Why is it stuck around for so long? Well, it all comes down to how practical it is. See, it's not meant to be some dusty old book you put on a shelf. The way it's presented, it's more like a user's manual for life, a guide for dealing with pretty much any problem or doubt you can imagine. The idea is whatever you're facing, the answers are in there. Okay, so let's get into it. The first chapter is everything. I mean, it's absolutely crucial because it sets up this problem, this massive personal crisis that is so big it makes all the wisdom that comes later feel completely necessary. You can't have the answers without first understanding the question, right? This is the foundation for the whole thing. So where does the story kick off? Well, you might think it's right there on the battlefield, but it's not. It actually starts in a palace with a single question from the blind king, Dhritarashtra. He turns to his advisor, Sanjaya, who has this amazing gift of divine sight, and asks, "Tell me, what are my sons and the sons of Pandu doing on the battlefield?" But here's the thing. The king is already eaten up by guilt. He knows deep down that he let this happen, that he chose war because of his love for his own sons. And now, he's just terrified of what's coming. And just like that, boom, we're transported to the battlefield itself, Kurukshetra. Sanjay starts his play-by-play, and he paints this incredible picture of two gigantic armies staring each other down. But the real gut punch, the real tragedy here, this isn't two foreign armies. It's family. This is a family feud that has exploded into a full-blown civil war. We're talking cousins, uncles, all lined up, ready to kill each other. So the king's son, Duryodhana, walks up to his own teacher, Drona, and he starts doing the math. He's basically sizing up the competition. He points out all the heavy hitters on the other side. You've got Bhima, you've got Arjun. Then he puffs out his chest and lists all the champions on his team. The legendary Bhishma and Karna. It's almost like a modern-day risk assessment, right? You're checking out your opponent's strengths and weaknesses and your own right before a massive project kicks off. And then it begins. The signal. The great elder Bhishma blows his conch shell, and his army just erupts. You can imagine this deafening roar of drums and horns. But the answer from the other side? Whoa, it's even more terrifying. Krishna and Arjun blow their own divine conches, and the sound is described as being so powerful that it literally shakes the earth and shatters the hearts of their enemies. This is it. The moment has come. And right here, it's like the camera suddenly zooms in. We go from this epic wide shot of two massive armies to a tight close-up on just one person, Arjun. He's the greatest warrior of his generation, and he's about to make a request that will bring this whole massive war to a screeching halt. Now, at this point, Arjun is feeling it. He's confident, he's ready to go. He turns to his charioteer, who, by the way, happens to be the god Krishna himself in human form, and tells him to drive the chariot right into the middle of the battlefield, right into that no man's land between the two armies. He doesn't just want to fight, he wants to see them. He wants to look his opponents square in the eye. He wants to see for himself who exactly has shown up for this fight. Who are these people so hungry for war that they're willing to stand against him? And that question right there, who must I fight with? That is the moment everything changes. This huge, epic war suddenly becomes deeply, and I mean painfully, personal. So Krishna pulls the chariot to a stop right there in the middle of everything, and Arjun looks out. And what he sees just breaks him. It's not some faceless, anonymous army of enemies. He sees his life. He sees his teachers, the people who taught him everything he knows. He sees his grandfather, Bhishma, whom he loves. He sees his uncles, his cousins, his own sons and grandsons. Literally, his entire world is standing on that field, ready to die. And that realization just hits him like a ton of bricks. It triggers a total and complete breakdown. He's flooded with this overwhelming sorrow and compassion, and his body and his mind just give out. We're not talking about just being sad here. This is a full-blown, what am I doing with my life existential crisis. And this is a really, really important point. The official name for this first chapter is Arjun Vishad Yoga. That translates to something like the yoga of Arjun's despair. Now, when we hear yoga, we think of stretching, right? But here, it means something more like a path or a discipline. The text is framing his crisis not as a failure, but as a crucial step on a spiritual journey. His despair is actually the path that leads him to wisdom. Wild, right? And Arjun's reaction? It's completely physical. He tells Krishna, "My arms and legs feel weak, my mouth is completely dry, I'm shaking all over." He says his skin feels like it's burning, his head is spinning, he can't even stand up straight. It's so visceral. And, it sounds a lot like a modern-day panic attack, doesn't it? That overwhelming physical feeling you get right before a huge exam or when you have to make a massive life decision. And this whole collapse is captured in one single powerful image, the Gandiva. His legendary bow, basically an extension of his own arm, his whole identity as a warrior, it literally slips from his hand. Think about that. The greatest archer in the world can't even hold his own weapon anymore. He is just completely and utterly broken. But here's the thing. Arjun isn't just having an emotional breakdown. His mind is racing, and he starts trying to reason his way through it. He lays out this whole chain of logic for Krishna. It goes something like this. If I kill my family, the family unit is destroyed. If the family collapses, so does dharma, the entire social and moral order. When that's gone, sin and corruption will run wild. He fears this will lead to the corruption of the family's women, which leads to a mixed-up lineage, and that ultimately sends the whole family, past and future, straight to hell. He sees this one act of war causing a domino effect that leads to total chaos. All right, so that brings us to the end of the chapter. After laying out all his arguments, completely consumed by his grief, Arjun just gives in. He completely surrenders to his despair and tells Krishna his final decision. And his words are just so powerful. He basically says, "Krishna, I don't want victory. I don't want a kingdom or any pleasures." He asks, what's the point of any of it? A kingdom, happiness, even my own life, if the very people I'm supposed to enjoy it with are all standing here about to be killed. In his eyes, there is no good that can possibly come from this. No victory is worth this price. I mean, his despair is so absolute, he comes to a shocking conclusion. He says it would be better if his enemies, his own family, just killed him. Right then and there. Unarmed, not fighting back. For Arjun, in that moment, death is a better option than being a part of this horrible slaughter. And with that final thought, Sanjaya's narration to the king concludes the chapter. He says Arjun just threw down his bow and arrows and sank down into his seat on the chariot, just completely overwhelmed by grief. And that's the final image we're left with. The hero has fallen, but not from an enemy's weapon. He's been defeated by his own inner battle. So that leaves us with this huge question, right? When a hero is completely and totally broken, when your sense of purpose, your will to even move forward, is shattered, where do you go from there? What happens next? Because Arjun's breakdown, this isn't the end of the story. It's actually the most important beginning. It's the very thing that creates the silence, the space needed for the real wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita to finally be heard.